ready.
Okay,
Recording in progress.
all right. I would like to welcome everyone to the Committee of the Whole meeting on this December 6th, 2021. And before we, I'm unmuted, correct? Before we get started, I would like to extend a warm and enthusiastic welcome to our newest council member. This is Carmen Rivera's first Committee of the Whole meeting, and Council Member Rivera, I'd love it if you'd say a few words, if you don't mind. And you're muted. Yeah.
Thank you, Councilmember Corman. I appreciate that, and I am just incredibly grateful to be here. It's been a really full day with a couple of committee meetings, and I am enjoying all of the great information I'm learning from our amazing staff, and I'm just very happy to be here. So thank you for the warm welcome. Yeah.
Well, great. Well, thank you, and I'm glad your orientation's going well. I know you're going to get up to speed really quickly. Okay, well, with that, I'll jump into our regular agenda. We just have one item tonight. It's the allocation of lodging tax funding for 2021. And if Jesse Kotarski could take it from here, I'd appreciate it.
Sure, absolutely. On August 30th, the Lodging Tax Advisory Committee began accepting applications for the use of lodging tax funds for the 2022 budget year. Applications were due on October 22nd. 19 applications were received, totaling $945,500 in requested funds. The committee heard presentations from qualified applicants on November 10th and reviewed their findings as a team to finalize their recommendations. The committee recommends the approval of $460,000 in awards to support 18 programs scheduled for 2022. The recommended recipients include Empowering, who will host the North American Fashion Week, a Diwali Ball celebration, and the International Women's Show. All three events are scheduled for fall 2022. The City of Maple Valley, who will be hosting the 2022 Ironman competition in September. The Dawo Project, who will be organizing the Northwest Naturals Expo in February. The Parks and Recreation Department, who is planning for the annual 4th of July celebration and the holiday lights at Coulon. The Randall Morris Foundation, who has scheduled their annual celebrity golf tournament for September. The Renton Chamber of Commerce Visitor Center operations, which are open and operating year-round. Renton City Retro, who will be bringing a retro-themed convention to the city in August. The partners of the Renton Community Marketing Campaign, who are working to promote the city through their year-round efforts. The Renton Downtown Partnership, who are promoting downtown as a destination year-round and will be organizing a special Holiday Lights Festival next December. The Seattle Film Summit in September, and the 2022 Sangam Festival scheduled for May. In addition to these groups, the committee has elected to set aside funds in the amount of $10,000 to support community events that will provide services that may not have the same emphasis on the generation of large numbers of hotel nights, but do serve to indirectly increase tourism. The committee is confident that the selected applicants and the proposed projects will serve to promote Renton both as a business and leisure destination and ultimately bring more people and economic activity to the city. The estimated 2021 fund balance ending fund balance for available lodging tax funds is sufficient to cover the total costs of the recommended funding package. Are there any questions or concerns about the recommendations of the advisors?
Thank you, Jesse. Oh, I see a hand raised. Councilmember Perez, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, Jesse. Great presentation. How many applicants we have, you said?
There were 19 total.
And how many we approved?
18.
Okay. Okay, thank you, Jesse.
Councilmember Perez, great question. I'm just going to add, so Jesse, excellent job of summarizing the results. And I was just going to add that, so I did chair the activities of the Lodging Tax Advisory Committee as we looked at the applications this year. there's some, as Jesse explained, some very good programs being proposed. We're very excited about them coming here. Some of them are returning. We did have to really look closely at the budget because because lodging hasn't been generating as much revenue, obviously, from the pandemic, and so there hasn't been as much lodging tax receipts. And so, really, I think probably with no exceptions, I think all the applicants are not getting quite the funding that they were hoping they were going to get. We did try and give them all enough that we thought that their events could be successful. We did try and reserve a little bit of money so that there could potentially be a second round of funding, not a lot of funding, but it seemed possible to us that given the pandemic and sort of the changing nature of the environment, we think that there might have been some potential events that weren't even being brought to us at this time, but could potentially, be brought to us later next year if things look better. So we have a little bit of money held back for that, but for the most part, we were pretty careful that we really kind of had a focus on mostly trying to get heads in beds, trying to get room bookings, and looking at past performance, getting room booking, so that the fund would stay solvent. But also we did look at events that have a potential to grow, and we give them additional special consideration. Other questions? Councilmember O'Halloran.
Thank you. I may have missed this, but I understand it was 900,000+ in requests. How much did we give out in total?
460,000.
So just over 50%. Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Councilmember Van, I think, first.
I think Councilmember Prince.
Okay, I apologize. I don't have the best screen at looking at the raised hands. Councilmember Prince?
Unfortunately, Jesse, a great job as always. I have to step away for a moment. Did you give us dollar figures?
I did not. They are outlined in the issue paper, and I can go through them if you would like.
Could you please?
Sure. So for Empowering's Diwali Ball, the recommended is 15,000. For Empowering North American Fashion Week, the recommendation is 20,000. For Empowering Women's Show, 20,000. City of Maple Valley, Ironman, 25,000. Zawa, the Northwest Naturals Expo, 12,500. The Renton Multicultural Festival will be a $5,000 sponsorship. The 4th of July celebration from Parks Department is 20,000. The Parks Department Holiday Lights at Coulon will be 10,000. The Randall Morris Foundation Celebrity Golf Tournament will be 20,000. The Renton Chamber of Commerce Visitor Center Operations will be 100,000. The Renton City Retro event will be 20,000. The Renton Community Marketing Campaign, 80,000. The Downtown Marketing Campaign hosted by the Renton Downtown Partnerships, 27,500. The Holiday Lights Festival hosted by the Renton Downtown Partnerships, 15,000. The Renton Farmers Market sponsorship would be 2,500. The Renton River Day sponsorship would be 2,500. The Seattle Film Summit is 40,000. The Sangam Cultural Event Festival, 25,000.
Thank you, Jesse.
Shall we move to Councilmember Van?
Thank you, Council President. Thank you, Jesse. I guess I was curious. So the requested amount is 907,000. The awarded amount overall is 460,000. What is the amount that we have received total in our budget? What is the amount that we have in our budget? That's number one. And then, of course, the second question is, what was the reason for the one other organization not receiving the grant?
Yeah, good questions. Jesse, do you want to go ahead and answer those? And I can
Sure.
follow up.
The projected ending balance, and this is projected based on grants that have not yet been sent out. So these are awardees from the 2021 funding period who have not yet claimed their reimbursements. And then the proposed or the expected coming in from the lodging tax is about 618,000. That's what's allotted in the budget currently. Don't hold me to that exact figure. That again is an estimate. And then the one application that the advisors did not feel was prepared yet. It was sort of it's a new event. They have not held it yet. And the interview there were some questions that remained unanswered.
And I will add that I'm not addressing that event specifically, but I know it sort of fell into this group. The way that the committee overall was looking at these events is they were really in favor of the lodging tax being a part of the cost of putting on the event, or part of the revenue for putting on the event, I should say. But really like to see it matched by other revenue sources. So for people that have been doing events in the past and maybe they're getting registration fees and sponsorship donations and then they come to and ask for lodging tax, the committee tended to be agreeable to providing maybe and there was no set numbers, but 20 to 30% of their event costs if they were going to generate a lot of heads and beds. But the committee was more concerned if somebody had a new event and wanted it to be funded entirely with LTAC money, where there wasn't, a lot of other matching money, just because it was felt that you could leverage the money better if they were seeking other sources of revenue. So I'm sharing this in part just sort of for general knowledge for applicants in following years, and it's sort of subject to the the committee members, but that seemed reasonable. They loved seeing the LTAC money get leveraged along with other money to have a successful event. Jesse, you think I said that correctly? Is that about how you read it?
Yeah, no, that seems very accurate. It was a brand new event with a very large budget that was asking for almost full support.
Okay. Any other questions from the council? Ryan?
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. So I think you answered my question earlier before I asked it, which was of the set aside for other folks, and which I really do appreciate, even if it is a smaller amount, because knowing sometimes deadlines can be challenging. I guess the question I would ask then of this list we see before us, is there anyone we've funded previously that we were expecting to receive an application from and didn't, that we've kind of targeted that for? And then vice versa, I guess the question to be thinking about, because I love the idea of supporting new events, is are there proven events in the community that don't know about the process for funding that we've done the opposite to and reached out to and said, hey, we think you have a really great event. You might be worth applying for this funding because we do think you would generate the heads and beds we'd be looking for.
I'll take a stab at answering that. One of the reasons that I personally wanted to see us set money aside was that just exactly as you're saying, I was asked offline by somebody who puts on a writers convention about the LTAC funding, and I broke the news to them that, we're already into we've already asked for applications and we're already into the funding cycle. And they clued me in that they had been waiting they weren't sure if they were going to be able to hold the event and still weren't sure. So they didn't know how, I want to say that they're self-conscious enough that they didn't want, or conscientious enough, I guess is the way to put it, that they didn't want to bother us asking for money for an event that they weren't sure they were going to safely be able to hold. And I felt like, we shouldn't be penalizing them for that. And so, I suggest to them that if they're if they remain interested and they are going to hold their event, that they could inquire with the city and see if there was going to be an additional funding cycle. But that got me thinking that there might be others in that same group that just, are hoping to hold a convention and they don't know if they can do it. And, I think it's still uncertain. Maybe even halfway through next year, we won't know. But anyway, so I know of at least one. And Jesse, perhaps you know of others?
Well, I do know the hoteliers have been making more of a concentrated effort to engage and target some event planners who have not yet taken their events to Renton, and using the LTAC as an incentive to apply and come to this new audience. We have the great spaces and facilities for you. And the Renton Community Marketing Campaign has also partnered with the lodging tax and the hoteliers to push that market message outside of Renton and outside of the state as well. So there are attempts.
Appreciate that. Thank you.
Well, great questions. Oh, yes, Councilmember Perez.
Thank you, Mr. President. I know that I asked this question before, but I guess that the events that we are choosing this year that in the past had applied for this revenue, we are awarding again these grants because they have proven to be successful in bringing heads and beds. And the other question will be, is this the first time that we are awarding LTAC funds to the 4th of July celebration and the holiday lights at Cowan Park?
Jesse, do you want to go ahead with those?
Sure. This is not the first year that the LTAC funds have supported the holiday lights at Cowan Park. Last year, I believe, was the first year, Randy, correct me if I'm wrong, that there was a sponsorship for that program.
Yeah. I believe that's correct. That's how I remember it too. I think it did change last year, and I think historically, I certainly remember when those holiday lights got started, and it was IVARS sponsoring that, and I think they were sort of backing off on. And I don't remember the details of why they stopped necessarily, but last year we decided that was one event that could have social distancing, and so we would support it. It did fall under a lot of scrutiny by the hotels that are represented on the committee, because they pointed out, well, the holiday lights aren't going to put heads in beds. So the LTAC funding under state law can also be used just to promote your city, sort of the city's brand, and so it sort of falls into that. But I think longer term, it would be very desirable to find a sponsor of those holiday lights.
Thank you, Mr. President. If I can have a follow-up question.
Certainly,
And I'm assuming that events like our Ironman and AM Powering festivals have proven to put heads in beds, and that's the reason. It's a data that we can track, and that's the reason why we are allocating funds to these events again. Am I right, JC, or not? Oh, we don't have the data.
No, that's correct. They are required to submit a report every event. An applicant that receives LTAC funding must submit a report in order to receive their funding, and the reports include heads and beds and number of people traveling outside of the 50 plus miles. So these are all applicants. The repeat applicants have shown that they are either resulting in heads and beds or showing significant growth as their events mature.
Thank you, Jesse.
Good questions. Any other questions?
Mr. President,
Yes, Councilmember Prince.
not a question, more of a comment. I can tell you, so the city manager for Maple Valley serves on the SCA board with me, and they don't have hotels in their city. And so from what I've heard, the Hyatt was packed and the other surrounding hotels were packed during Ironman.
Yeah.
Just the sheer fact that they don't have hotels in Maple Valley.
Yeah, I was just thinking about that. Thank you, Councilmember Prince. Yeah, that was an event that the Hyatt and I think the other hotels mentioned that they loved. We had a representative from the City of Maple Valley pop in during an interview part, and they, reminded us that whenever people in Maple Valley need hotels, they recommend Renton. So we appreciate that, and apparently it really pays off for that Ironman. So we were happy. So even though that event isn't being conducted in Renton, because they send everybody here for lodging, it's quite an effective event. And that's a kind of a nice example of, I'm trying to remember, I think Maple Valley, I don't want to say something I can't remember for sure, but I thought the city really helped, the city of Maple Valley helped sponsor that, as did our city through LTAC, and we're receiving all the hotel LTAC. So anyways, a nice partnership. Yeah, Ryan.
Oh, I couldn't resist chiming in on the Ironman since Ed brought it up. So the one thing I want to throw as a caveat as a participant in the inaugural event, it's not just that they're staying in our hotels. I know they were dining and shopping in downtown Renton. There's several people who were from out of the area that were there that I just talked to in transition area, like before the event, mentioned places they'd gone to downtown and at the landing. So it is an economic engine for the city as well too. So I do want to give kudos to that event. I think it's a great event, and would love to have more events of that caliber show up on this list in future years.
Great. Well, thank you. Fun to hear your personal perspective on that. Okay, I don't see any other hands raised. Final chance at this? Well, not really. Of course, it's going to come to council for it to be read. Okay, well, thank you all. And again, Councilmember Rivera, it's very nice having you with us. And with that, I'll adjourn the committee of the whole, and we'll reconvene as a council in 23 minutes. See you.